Have you ever felt like you were giving your heart to someone who only gave you confusion in return? Have you ever stayed awake at night trying to decode mixed signals, wondering whether you were loved, valued, or simply being used? Listen carefully, because what you don't recognize can keep you trapped in a cycle that slowly steals your confidence, your peace, and your self-worth. The most dangerous people are not always the ones who openly reject you. Sometimes they are the ones who keep you close enough to benefit from your presence, but never close enough to truly commit to you. Many people mistake emotional distance for mystery. They mistake inconsistency for complexity. They convince themselves that if they just love harder, wait longer, or become more understanding, everything will eventually change. But there comes a moment when you must stop looking at someone's potential and start paying attention to their patterns. The first thing an emotionally unavailable person often says is, "I'm just not ready for a relationship right now." At first, that sounds reasonable. Everyone moves at a different pace. Everyone has struggles, but pay attention. When someone repeatedly says they are not ready, yet continues to enjoy all the benefits of your affection, your attention, your loyalty, and your emotional support, you have to ask yourself an important question. If they are not ready for commitment, why are they ready for everything else? A person who values you will not keep you indefinitely in a waiting room. They will not ask you to invest your heart while refusing to invest theirs. When someone truly wants to build something with you, they find reasons to move forward. When they don't, they find reasons to stay exactly where they are. The second thing they often say is, "You're asking for too much." Think about that. Are you asking for too much when you want honesty? Are you asking for too much when you want consistency? Are you asking for too much when you want communication and respect? Many people begin shrinking themselves to fit into someone else's comfort zone. They lower their standards. They silence their needs. They stop expressing their feelings because they have been convinced that wanting basic respect is somehow demanding. But healthy relationships do not require you to become smaller. They do not require you to apologize for needing clarity. The right person will not make you feel guilty for asking for what every human heart deserves: honesty, effort, and mutual care. The third thing they often say is, "You're overthinking things." This statement can be incredibly damaging because it causes you to doubt your own instincts. Suddenly, the unanswered messages become your imagination. The broken promises become your imagination. The lack of effort becomes your imagination. But deep down, you know what you are experiencing. Your intuition is a gift. It notices patterns before your emotions are ready to accept them. It recognizes inconsistencies that your heart wants to excuse. While it is important not to jump to conclusions, it is equally important not to ignore repeated evidence. Stop calling your awareness insecurity. Stop calling your wisdom weakness. Sometimes what you are feeling is not anxiety, it is clarity trying to get your attention. The fourth thing they often say is, "I don't want to lose you." Now, this may sound romantic, it may sound caring, but words without action are empty containers. If someone says they don't want to lose you, yet continues treating you in ways that push you away, what are they really saying? They may not want to lose the benefits you provide. They may not want to lose your support, your attention, your validation, or your presence. But wanting access to you is not the same as valuing you. Never confuse someone's fear of losing convenience with genuine commitment. The truth is that people reveal their intentions through consistent behavior. Actions tell stories that words cannot hide forever. If someone values you, you won't constantly have to question where you stand. If someone respects you, you won't feel like you're fighting for scraps of affection. If someone genuinely wants to build a future with you, their actions will create security, not confusion. Your life is too precious to spend chasing certainty from people committed to ambiguity. Your heart is too valuable to be placed in the hands of someone who only picks it up when it benefits them. The moment you stop accepting breadcrumbs, you make room for the feast you deserve. The moment you stop settling for confusion, you create space for clarity. And the moment you stop begging for someone to recognize your worth, you begin recognizing it yourself. Remember this. Your value does not decrease because someone failed to appreciate it. Your worth is not determined by another person's inability to commit. You are not difficult to love. You are not too much. You are not asking for impossible things. You deserve relationships where effort is mutual, communication is clear, and respect is consistent. Never be afraid to walk away from what drains your spirit. Sometimes the strongest act of love is not holding on, it is letting go of what no longer honors your value. So stand tall, protect your peace, trust what you see, not just what you hear, and never forget that the right people will not leave you confused about your place in their lives. They will show you through their actions that you matter, that you are valued, and that you are worthy of genuine love. The first thing an emotionally unavailable person often says is, "I'm just not ready for a relationship right now." At first, those words can sound honest. In fact, they can sound responsible. You hear them and think, at least this person is being truthful. You tell yourself they are going through something difficult. Maybe they need time, maybe they have been hurt before, maybe they are focused on their career, their family, or personal growth. Because you care about them, you naturally want to be understanding. You want to give them the space they say they need. But here is where many people become trapped. They hear the statement, but they ignore everything that follows it. Because while this person says they are not ready for a relationship, they continue to call you when they are lonely. They continue to seek your attention when they need reassurance. They continue to enjoy your affection, your support, your kindness, and your emotional investment. They may even behave like a partner in many ways. They spend time with you. They share intimate conversations. They create moments that feel meaningful. They keep the connection alive just enough to make you believe that something greater is right around the corner. And so you wait. You wait because hope is powerful. Hope has a way of convincing us that tomorrow will be different from today. Hope whispers that if we are patient enough, loving enough, understanding enough, eventually the walls will come down and everything will change. But one of the hardest lessons in life is learning that waiting does not automatically create commitment. Time alone does not transform someone into the person you need them to be. You can spend months, even years, standing beside someone who keeps promising a future they never intend to build. The problem is not always that they are lying. Sometimes they genuinely believe what they are saying in the moment. Sometimes they do care about you. Sometimes they enjoy your presence and appreciate what you bring into their life. But caring about someone and committing to them are two different things. Many people confuse the two. They think that because someone enjoys their company, commitment must be coming soon. They think that because someone shares personal details, commitment must be developing. They think that because someone occasionally expresses affection, commitment is just around the corner. But commitment is not measured by occasional moments of closeness. Commitment is measured by consistent action. It is measured by someone choosing to move forward instead of remaining comfortably undecided. When a person repeatedly says they are not ready for a relationship while continuing to receive all the benefits of one, you must pay attention to the reality of the situation. Ask yourself a simple question. What incentive do they have to change? They already receive your time. They already receive your attention. They already receive your emotional support. They already receive your loyalty. From their perspective, they are enjoying many of the rewards without accepting the responsibilities. Meanwhile, you are paying the emotional cost. You are carrying the uncertainty. You are carrying the anxiety. You are carrying the constant burden of wondering where you stand. And perhaps the most painful part is that you begin negotiating against your own needs. You tell yourself not to ask for clarity because you do not want to pressure them. You stop bringing up your concerns because you do not want to seem demanding. You convince yourself that your standards are too high. Little by little, you start abandoning your own emotional needs just to maintain access to someone who refuses to meet them. That is a dangerous place to live because every healthy relationship requires mutual effort. Healthy love does not demand that one person sacrifice all of their needs while the other remains comfortable. Healthy love does not leave one person constantly guessing. Healthy love does not keep someone trapped in emotional limbo. There is a difference between someone who genuinely needs a little time and someone who is permanently postponing commitment. One moves toward clarity. The other survives on ambiguity. One communicates openly about their intentions. The other keeps everything vague enough to avoid accountability. One takes gradual steps forward. The other keeps creating reasons why now is never the right time. Pay attention to patterns. Anyone can make promises during emotional conversations. Anyone can say beautiful words when they fear losing you. Anyone can describe a future that sounds wonderful, but your future should never depend entirely on potential. Potential can be intoxicating. Potential can keep people stuck for years. You begin dating who someone could become instead of accepting who they currently are. You fall in love with possibilities instead of reality. And while you are focused on what might happen someday, life continues moving forward. Your opportunities pass by. Your energy becomes depleted. Your confidence begins to erode. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are investing in a situation that never provides the security your heart needs. The truth is that when someone is genuinely excited about building a future with you, their actions create momentum. They may not be perfect. They may have fears. They may have challenges. But even with those challenges, they move closer rather than further away. They seek solutions instead of excuses. They create clarity instead of confusion. And most importantly, they make you feel chosen rather than temporarily convenient. Never forget this. When someone tells you they are not ready for a relationship, believe their actions even more than their words. Respect what they are showing you. Do not build your future around promises that never become reality. Do not spend your precious years trying to convince someone of your value. The right person will not need endless reminders of what you bring to their life. They will recognize it, appreciate it, and rise to meet it. And if someone continually tells you they are not ready while asking you to keep giving more of yourself, the most powerful thing you can do is stop waiting for them to decide your worth. The second thing they often say is, "You're asking for too much." At first, those words can hit you harder than you expect. They make you stop and question yourself. They make you wonder whether your expectations are unrealistic. Maybe you are being too demanding. Maybe you should be more patient. Maybe you should lower your standards and become easier to please. And that is exactly why this statement is so powerful. It shifts the focus away from their lack of effort and places it directly onto your needs. Instead of examining whether they are showing up consistently, you begin examining whether your expectations are somehow unreasonable. Instead of asking why they continue to leave you confused, you start asking whether you are the problem. Over time, this can create a dangerous pattern. You begin editing yourself. You stop bringing up things that matter to you. You stop asking questions because you fear being labeled needy. You stop expressing disappointment because you fear being called dramatic. You stop asking for clarity because you fear being viewed as difficult. And little by little, you become a smaller version of yourself. The tragedy is that many people do not even notice it happening. It happens gradually. One compromise becomes another. One silence becomes another. One ignored need becomes another. Until one day you wake up and realize that the relationship revolves entirely around protecting their comfort while sacrificing your own peace. Think about what most people are actually asking for. They are asking for communication. They are asking for consistency. They are asking for honesty. They are asking to know where they stand. They are asking for effort that matches the effort they are giving. Those are not unreasonable demands. Those are the foundations of healthy relationships. Yet when someone is unwilling or unable to provide those things, they often make the request itself seem like the issue. Imagine being thirsty and asking for water, only to be told that your thirst is excessive. The problem is not the thirst. The problem is the lack of water. In the same way, your desire for clarity is not the problem. Your need for respect is not the problem. Your desire for consistency is not the problem. The real issue is often that the other person is uncomfortable providing what healthy connection requires. And because they do not want to confront that reality, it becomes easier to convince you that your expectations are somehow unreasonable. Many people spend years carrying guilt for having normal emotional needs. They apologize for wanting communication. They apologize for wanting commitment. They apologize for wanting reassurance. They apologize for wanting effort. Eventually, they become so focused on not asking for too much that they stop asking for what they deserve altogether. That is where self-worth begins to suffer, because every time you silence a legitimate need to keep someone comfortable, you send yourself a subtle message. You tell yourself that your feelings matter less. You tell yourself that your needs are inconvenient. You tell yourself that keeping someone else happy is more important than honoring your own emotional well-being. And the longer this continues, the more disconnected you become from your own value. The truth is that healthy people do not punish you for expressing needs. Healthy people may not always agree with every request, but they listen, they communicate, they work toward understanding. They do not automatically label your feelings as excessive simply because addressing them requires effort. Real connection requires vulnerability from both people. It requires conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable. It requires accountability. It requires growth. But someone who wants all the benefits of connection without any of the responsibility will often resist those conversations. They want the relationship on terms that only serve them. They want access to your energy without being accountable to your emotions. They want your loyalty without offering security. They want your understanding without extending the same understanding to you. And when you ask for balance, they call it too much. Never underestimate how damaging this can become. The human heart naturally adapts to its environment. If you spend enough time being told that your needs are excessive, eventually you begin believing it. You start lowering standards you once considered non-negotiable. You start accepting behavior you would have never tolerated before. You start celebrating bare minimum effort because your expectations have been conditioned downward. A delayed text becomes progress. A small act of kindness becomes proof of commitment. An occasional moment of affection becomes enough to keep you holding on. Meanwhile, your deeper needs remain unmet. This is why self-awareness is so important. You must regularly ask yourself an honest question. Are you truly asking for too much, or are you asking the wrong person? Because those are very different realities. The wrong person will make healthy expectations feel burdensome. The right person will see them as part of building something meaningful. The wrong person will make you feel guilty for wanting clarity. The right person will understand why clarity matters. The wrong person will view your needs as obstacles. The right person will view them as opportunities to strengthen the relationship. Never allow someone's unwillingness to give what you need to convince you that needing it is wrong. There is nothing wrong with wanting consistency. There is nothing wrong with wanting respect. There is nothing wrong with wanting communication. There is nothing wrong with wanting someone whose actions align with their words. You deserve relationships where your voice is heard, not tolerated. You deserve relationships where your feelings are respected, not dismissed. You deserve relationships where effort flows both ways rather than leaving one person carrying the entire emotional weight. The people who genuinely value you will not require you to become less of yourself to earn their affection. They will not ask you to silence your needs to maintain the connection. They will not make you feel guilty for wanting what every healthy relationship should naturally provide. And the moment you stop apologizing for your standards, you begin making room for people who are capable of meeting them. Never shrink your needs to fit inside someone else's limitations. The third thing they often say is, you're overthinking things. Few phrases can make a person doubt themselves more quickly than those 4 words. The moment you hear them, you begin questioning your own judgment. You wonder if you are reading too much into situations. You wonder if your concerns are exaggerated. You wonder if your instincts are misleading you. And before long, the focus shifts away from the behavior that created the concern and onto your reaction to it. That is why this phrase can be so confusing, because sometimes people do overthink. Sometimes fear can cause us to imagine problems that are not really there. Sometimes past wounds can make us extra sensitive. But there is a major difference between irrational worry and a repeated pattern that continues to produce the same uncomfortable feeling. When something keeps happening, it deserves attention. When promises repeatedly go unfulfilled, it deserves attention. When communication remains inconsistent, it deserves attention. When words and actions continue to contradict each other, it deserves attention. Yet many people ignore what they see because they have been told that noticing these things means they are overthinking. The reality is that most people do not suddenly become anxious for no reason. Most confusion comes from conflicting information. When someone tells you they care deeply but disappears whenever accountability enters the conversation, confusion naturally follows. When someone says they want a future with you but refuses to take steps toward that future, confusion naturally follows. When someone acts affectionate one day and emotionally distant the next, confusion naturally follows. You are not confused because you are weak. You are confused because the signals are mixed, and mixed signals often create emotional exhaustion. Think about how much energy people spend trying to interpret behavior that should be clear. They analyze text messages. They replay conversations. They search for hidden meanings. They look for clues. They try to connect dots that should never require detective work in the first place. The reason this happens is simple. When clarity is absent, the mind tries to create certainty. The human brain dislikes uncertainty. It wants answers. It wants understanding. It wants stability. So when someone continually creates ambiguity, your mind works overtime trying to make sense of what is happening. Then, when you finally express your concerns, you hear those familiar words, you're overthinking. What often gets overlooked is that healthy relationships rarely require constant analysis. Healthy relationships create peace more often than confusion. They create trust more often than doubt. They create understanding more often than uncertainty. That does not mean every question disappears or every problem vanishes. It simply means that the overall direction is clear. You know where you stand. You know what the other person feels. You know what they are building with you. When those things are consistently communicated through both words and actions, there is far less room for confusion. But when someone benefits from keeping things vague, they may dismiss your concerns rather than address them. Why? Because addressing them would require honesty. It would require accountability. It would require making decisions they may not be ready to make. And sometimes it is easier to label your concerns as overthinking than to confront the reality behind them. This is where many people begin losing trust in themselves. They stop listening to their instincts. They stop paying attention to patterns. They start assuming their emotions are always the problem. Every uncomfortable feeling becomes something to suppress rather than something to explore. Every concern becomes something to apologize for rather than something to discuss. Over time, this creates a painful disconnect between what they know and what they allow themselves to believe. Deep down, they notice the inconsistencies. Deep down, they recognize the lack of effort. Deep down, they feel the imbalance. But because they have repeatedly been told they are overthinking, they convince themselves to ignore what is right in front of them. The problem with ignoring reality is that reality does not disappear. It simply continues repeating itself until you are willing to acknowledge it. Patterns reveal truth, not isolated incidents, not occasional mistakes, patterns. Anyone can have a bad day, anyone can forget something, anyone can make an error in judgment, but when the same behaviors continue month after month, those behaviors become information. They tell a story, they reveal priorities, they reveal intentions, they reveal character. One of the greatest forms of self-respect is learning to trust what repeated patterns are teaching you. Not every uncomfortable feeling is insecurity, not every concern is anxiety, not every question is overthinking. Sometimes your discomfort is wisdom trying to get your attention. Sometimes your frustration is the result of unmet needs. Sometimes your confusion is a response to someone else's inconsistency. And sometimes the answer is not to think less. Sometimes the answer is to see more clearly. There is a powerful difference between paranoia and awareness. Paranoia invents problems. Awareness recognizes them. Paranoia creates stories without evidence. Awareness pays attention to repeated facts. Paranoia assumes the worst. Awareness observes what consistently happens. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is not to live in fear. The goal is to develop enough confidence in yourself that you can acknowledge reality without needing someone else's permission. You do not need to ignore your instincts to prove you are secure. You do not need to silence your concerns to prove you are understanding. You do not need to accept confusion to prove you are patient. Healthy patience waits for growth. Unhealthy patience waits for patterns that never change. Your intuition intuition is not perfect, but it exists for a reason. It notices things your conscious mind may not fully process yet. It recognizes shifts in energy. It detects inconsistencies. It alerts you when something feels off. That does not mean every feeling should be treated as fact, but it does mean every feeling deserves consideration. Listen carefully to yourself. Pay attention to what repeatedly drains your peace. Pay attention to what repeatedly creates doubt. Pay attention to what repeatedly leaves you feeling unseen, unheard, or uncertain. Because when someone consistently makes you question your reality while refusing to clarify their behavior, the problem may not be your thinking at all. The moment you learn to trust your own observations, you stop allowing confusion to masquerade as connection.